Welcome back to another episode of Suckcessfull, the podcast.
I'm one of your hosts, Blake, and joining me,
I'm one of your other hosts, Justin.
And this is the podcast all about the not so subtle truth about success and
the art of sucking less in pursuit of it. Let's not waste any more time and get right to the show.
So, Justin, I am in the middle of moving, as you know, but our audience does not. And my whole house is a disaster now. I sold all of my shelving, which was great, except that all the stuff that's on the shelf is now on the floor. So that's fun.
So that I did not know. And I will tell you, first of all, congratulations. Moving is like, in my mind, kind of romantic. When you think about it, you're like, oh, I'm moving, a new beginning. And you move and you're like, this fucking sucks. It blows. And the worst part is the older you get, the less, I'm going to admit right here, I never help anyone move anymore. That's just not my thing. I'm past that stage. And that sucks too, because moving is a very lonely task. Getting stuff out of your house, selling it, all that kind of stuff. It's a very weird process. It's cleansing, but it's weird and it's final. It's all these weird kind of emotions that go into it. And hearing you talk about getting rid of shelving and all those other things to prepare for the next journey before you get to the final journey, it's weird, right?
It is. And it always seems to take longer than you thought it was going to.
Yes.
Even with the best planning. And somehow, no matter how organized you are, everything's a disaster.
100%. So let's dive into this real quick. And I'll tell you a story about my last huge move, and then we'll go into your latest. Does that sound fair?
Sounds fair.
All right. So when I first moved out here, I was kind of tired in the job that I was in. I was head of the Western Division for Honey. They wanted me to move to Tempe, Arizona. And I'm like, I'm not moving to Tempe, Arizona. That's like where the head of Arizona and everything is. And they're like, we really need you out there. And I'm like, I have no desire to live there. Great company, but I didn't want to move. And so they're like, well, then you're kind of stuck in where you're at. I was like, all right, well, then I got to find something else. Because all their locations are like, I think it's Morristown, New Jersey.
Are they
Tempe.
like desolate places, or are they like just weird, nobody goes to move there for their own free will type of thing, unless they just happen to grow up there?
It's a little bit of both, to be honest with you. So like Morristown, I've talked to people and I've been there before. It's actually a very beautiful suburb outside New York, 20, 30 miles outside. So it's actually a very affluent, wealthy area. But I mean, there's nothing about me that screams New Jersey. I worked in New Jersey for a while. It's not for me.
Sorry, New Jersey people. Sorry, my really great friend from New Jersey, but I hate New Jersey. It smells.
Yeah, it does. It's not my thing. Like, it's just not me, right? And most of the Northeast isn't me. And that's where most of that stuff is. And it was either that or Tempe, or I think there was one in Seattle. And I'm like, well, I don't need any more heroin in my life. So I'm not going to Seattle. I started looking. It was funny because this time it actually happened crazy fast. I interviewed in November and they wanted me out there January 3rd. And I was like, holy crap, what? I literally had to quit my job, do everything. And I left my family the day after Christmas. My mom actually drove out with me. She wanted to drive out with me. So we drove out here. It took like 3-4 days to get out here. We just did like a fun road trip with it. We got out here and then I lived out here by myself for 6 months while Kelly sold the other house. And then we bought a house here. It was like this whole weird transition thing. It was absolute utter chaos because my daughter had just been born. It was just like, wow. She was less than a year old, like all these things at once. My poor wife was by herself trying to sell a house and raise kids, all this stuff. I'm out here. I don't know anyone except people at work, and I'm traveling nonstop. So it was just absolute utter chaos. It worked, but it was like the fastest transition, weirdest period of my life. It went from this like crazy high to like a low, because like you're going through, like trying to find a place to live is hard when you're just starting a job and everything else. It's frustrating when you're traveling all the time. So I was basically gone from my family, traveling all the time, looking for a place to live, and then finding a place, and then designing a house. I mean, it was just all these steps back to back. So like the first 7 months of this job that I was super excited about, this huge opportunity, and I was just like exhausted by the end. I'm like, this is no bueno. I am done. This is overwhelming. What I've learned is don't rush it. I know that, you're talking about the best laid plans and everything else, and that's great, but there's nothing more certain in moving is that the unexpected will happen and it will take longer. Those are just the only things that I guarantee are facts. And I've just realized that the next move, whatever it is, I'm going to have very little planning. I'm just going to say this is what needs to happen. When it happens, it will happen.
Well, it's funny how you go through this process because I'm in the process of getting back to California. So that's a big move. I'm literally going across the country again. But originally I was like, okay, I'm too old to just like sell everything and have to start completely over, which I am. But as I'm going along, some of these things I'm like, I'm keeping this. I'm like,
well, hang on one sec. I apologize for interrupting, but I got to ask you here. Why do you feel you're too old to do that stuff?
Because, okay, I think part of it really is more of the fact that so moving into this apartment was a big deal for me. Not only was it because I hadn't lived alone in a long time, because I had always had roommates or stayed at my mom's when I first moved here. And then I had roommates after that. I've always had someone, boyfriend, somebody who was living with me for the last at least decade of my life. When I moved here, though, the difference was too, aside from that, I never bought furniture that was actual furniture. I was always in the mindset of this is temporary. This is temporary. This is temporary. I got tired of that. So this last time when I moved here, I was like, F that. I'm actually going to decorate. I'm actually going to buy actual furniture. I'm going to, because I mean, there were times I was like, fuck it. Mattress goes on the floor. That was my mindset. Because I was just like, I'm not going to be here that long. That was always my mentality. Now that I have things, I was like, well, some of this stuff I do want to bring with me because there's either sentimental mentality there or whatever, or it's things that are unique that I'm not probably going to find again. I like vintage furniture and stuff like that. So some of it's that, but it sounds easy, right? Oh, you'll just sell everything and then you'll buy all new things when you get there. People forget how damn expensive that is, especially in Los Angeles. Unless you are there is a time in LA where all of the people from Beverly Hills put their furniture out on the sidewalk that they don't want. So unless you hit that time and you get lucky and you decide you're going to spend a week driving around just picking random shit up, it's expensive to completely refurnish your apartment. People forget about you need silverware, you need this, you need that. So part of it was that it's just I just got tired of the whole I'm just going to dump everything that I have and need in my car and that's that. I'm now at the point where I'm like, okay, some of the stuff is getting shipped cross country because I'm not driving a truck. Fuck that. That's not happening. And I don't like driving large SUVs. So driving a truck is not happening. That's going in a pod or something. And it's getting shipped. Also, I want to, when I move out, take my time again, because that's one thing. The last time when I moved back was the worst experience because we were literally trying to drive pretty much straight through. Oh, it was so tiring. Once you hit Texas, Texas
miles.
Always kills me every time. It's the only time I'm trying to stay awake and I'll be on 4 things of coffee and I'll have even slept in a hotel really great that night and I'll get up and drive for an hour and I'm like
well, for those that have never driven across Texas, this is how it goes going west to east. All right. So you go through basically Vegas kind of desolate to a swamp in 800 miles. And it's weird. And you go up and down hills, but there's really nothing for about 500 miles. And it is desolate. It is, even in 2023, it is a long ass drive.
There's a rule when you go through Texas, once you hit halfway on your gas, you fill it up because there are certain places in Texas, it's 3 hours on either side of the one gas station and there is no signal. You get stuck out there, you better hope one of the truckers is real nice to you.
But not too nice. We got to be careful.
Not
here.
Too nice, yeah.
Ooh, that could open up the wrong door. Absolutely right. But please continue. Sorry.
Well, I don't know. I think that you asked me about the moving or the getting rid of furniture and that stuff. I think that's more of what it is. It's just I think I've done it so long. I'm just fuck that.
All right, fair enough. And it's funny because it is weird for those that are thinking about moving or, have this nostalgia of that kind of exciting, because it is exciting that when you made the commitment to move, right, it felt great. If you were excited, you're like, yes, it's going to happen. The time frame, all that stuff. And then the logistics of it, the L word pop up is what I call it. The logistics, whenever you start thinking about it, like you said, okay, I got to get my stuff across country. So am I going to use a pod? Am I going to pay a company or whatever? Here's an example from our side that happened. When we moved originally, when Kelly and I first got married, we moved and we had like our first big move, right? We moved from our apartment to a house. That we had friends, we got a U-Haul. It wasn't a huge deal. Okay. But this time we were like, we're going to get a trucking company. We're going to do it right. So we went with a certain company. I'd rather not say because it's going to get bleeped anyways. But anyways, they highly recommended, great company. I got reimbursed. The company paid for it to get moved. So I'm like, this is going to go great. Kelly, they moved out June or July is the kind of the time frame, somewhere in there. She leaves the truck, like they packed everything, they did all of it. So we thought it was gonna be stressful at all, right? The truck leaves, and then like 3 weeks later, there's still nothing. We don't have any furniture here. Like we're sleeping on an arrow bed. The kids, we have a pack and play they're sleeping in. There's nothing in our house. And I'm like, it's been 3 weeks. So they said it could take up to 10 days for whatever reason. I don't know why. So I finally called them and they're like, oh, we didn't know. This is just out of the movies. We didn't know you needed it right away, so we put it in storage. And I'm like, I swear to God, I'm like, you put our stuff that we're what? So they put it in storage, and they wanted us to pay an extra $2,000 to get it out of storage and have it moved.
No.
That's what I said. And it was stored in this really random, weird, sketchy, terrifying place in Texas. And I'm like, well, I can't go down there and get it. So anyways, they finally, after another week, so this is 4 weeks without stuff, they set a window 5 weeks from then to move it. We had 9 weeks living without stuff in this house. We had to buy plastic utensils. We did all these things that are horrible for the environment. I apologize, environment, but we didn't really have a lot of options at that stage of the game because I don't want to buy all new stuff because it was coming. So anyways, they finally arrive. They unload everything and... just like anything, they lost a few key things. My older son has a bunk bed. So they put the bunk bed together, but they didn't put the pins that hold it in place. So like if you slept in the top bunk and it moved, it would kill you, So they left. So they took them, I think, 2 days to unload and set up everything. They leave. They call the next day, like a customer service thing, like, how was the move? And I'm like, well, it wasn't great. And you need to come back and finish this stuff. And they're like, well, they didn't do that? They didn't put the bed together? I'm like, no. And they didn't do a few other things. I don't remember all of it. It's been like a decade. So anyways, it took 5 months for them because it's a special pin. I don't know. It's some kind of special pin that's only made. It's a weird dimensional thing that only, I guess, comes from China or something. It's a very weird pin. And I'm like, I'll just go to Lowe's and do it myself. No. You can't do that because we could get sued, whatever. So anyways, 5 months. So we're now looking at almost 7-8 months later. Finally, the move is officially over. But they lost just random things like I had an office chair. It was missing a wheel. Like, how do you miss a wheel on an office chair? Like, weird stuff. There was a random, I think a pillow was missing. There was a shelf. Like, we had 2 really nice bookshelves, and one of them was missing a shelf. And I'm like, the shelf doesn't come out. How was it missing a shelf? So anyway, it was just weird. And finally, at the end of it, it took probably a year. They cut us a check for some of it, maybe $700 worth or whatever. Still didn't cover everything. It sucked. So I am not looking forward to moving again. I know I have to at some point. I know because this is not where I want to end up. I mean, I love this, but I want to move back to California. It will take a while to get prepared for that move because of the PTSD I have from it.
Yeah, I would have been furious. I would have been so mad. Oh, they would have never heard the end of it. I would have just...
Well, that's the problem. So we were mad, but it's a huge company. I don't know. It's like one of the largest movers around, and you see them all over the place. They are bright yellow trucks, not Ryder, another brand, just saying. And there's no customer service. So like once it's done, there's really nothing you can do. You have to get a lawyer basically. So it was very frustrating. Yes, you have to move. Great. Go for it. But just be prepared that even when you think you're doing everything right, you just have no idea what can happen.
Well, I will tell you, one of my exes from college, his one side of the family used to own one of those major moving companies.
Oh, God.
And
what story are you going to say? I'm terrified.
Well, I was just going to say, for those who are moving with big companies, just keep in mind that most of those people that get hired don't go through background checks or any of those types of things. So
that's a warm fuzzy for the day, Blake. Thank you.
You're welcome. But I figure people should know that because some people have those big companies come in and just pack everything up for them. And anything really important, I would take care of yourself. That's my advice.
Yeah. First of all, for anybody moving, that is sage advice. That is great advice, 100%. One more funny story was Kelly at the time had, I think, a CRV she was driving, and I had a Mercedes, but it was too tiny to take stuff. It was a sport coupe. Anyway, so mine was out here. She was out there, moving everything. We had two dogs, we had all these things, two kids in a CRV packed with not only their stuff, but, like jewelry and everything else. And so it was just funny hearing the stories of them. They finally pack up, they get ready to leave, and then she has to change a diaper. So it takes another 10 minutes, and then all these things, like, she's finally ready to go. And then
And then
she's
the other
tired.
one probably has to go to the bathroom.
Exactly. And she was just like, oh, this never ends. This is like the move from hell. So if I propose to Kelly, I'm like, hey, let's move back to California now. She still gives me that look like, do you remember what it was like to move out here? I'm like, all right, good. It's not time yet. All right, not time.
Where would you move back to California?
It's so tough because when you're from there and when you've gone back recently, it's very nostalgic. So for me, I want to go back to the beach. Like Hermosa is one of my favorite. Most likely though, we'd end up further south, like in like the Laguna, kind of that area, like Newport, Aliso Viejo, somewhere down there. That kind of area is kind of Orange County is kind of I don't know. That's where we'd love to go. But again, it's not for right now.
Fair enough. I'm looking at moving back to Burbank or Glendale type area. Love Hollywood, but don't want to live in Hollywood. Not for me. And also West Hollywood. I don't know how anybody lives there because anytime anything happens, you can't even get in and out of your house for the entire day. I don't get it. The people who have to go to work, what do you do? Do you like get up and walk there? Like, I don't understand because during Halloween, it goes all the way out to Runyon Canyon. Like you can't even anywhere in that general vicinity, you do not move. So I don't understand how people exist in that little bubble. Like, how does that work?
Well, so I lived there very briefly. I lived there for, I think, 8 months on the street called Croft. I think it was 835 Croft was the address. That's how well I remember it. And I was one of the few straight people that lived there. For those that don't know, West Hollywood is and it looks like a chicken wing on a mat or like a chicken leg. It's this weird. It doesn't look like a normal city. It's like big here, and there's like a tiny little, it's like Santa Monica's a street, and then it goes up over here. It's very weird. It looks like a chicken leg. It's the way I describe it. Anyways, when I first moved in, my neighbors below, they were just the funniest, nicest. They always cooked. They always asked what I was doing. Like, so nice. But you talked about Halloween. So they had huge Halloween parties because I was one block off of like Melrose. So I was like right there. But they would always do the funniest thing. They're like, when I was leaving, they'd yell out, street guy coming through, and they would all giggle and they would all be like treat me like royalty, like, oh, there goes the street guy, let him through, he needs to leave, he doesn't need to see this. It was the funniest, and they would all yell it, and they'd be like, straight guy, they would just yell, and it was the funniest, and they had the best time with it, and I had the best time. Like, it was a really fun place to live. But I remember when I had to move my car one time, it wasn't Halloween, it was like July 4th or something, or some other holiday. These two guys across the street or whatever had like put out cones to park there, whatever, and they were like, anyone that tried to park there, like they'd send their dog after them. And they did whatever. But I was like, listen, I need to leave because I'm actually traveling tomorrow. And they're like, hey, look, park your car here because you don't really park totally out in the open, usually out there. Because if you live there, you have a garage or something else. But I'm like, look, can I park over there for the day? He's like, dude, we'll even put out cones for you. So it was so funny. I came back from work that day and there were cones out, and it even said for Justin, and it had like a little heart on it. It had all the sequins on it. I should have taken a picture, but there was no phone cameras back then. It was the funniest. So living out there for me was the weirdest. It could have been a movie. It was just, they celebrated straight. It was the weirdest thing. All I remember is all the time, straight guy, It was hilarious. If you find the right people, it can be really fun.
I was going to say, a lot of people over there are really accepting and really nice, and it's a great community. It's just now the parking sucks because in order for you to even street park anywhere, you have to have a certain permit that you have to pay for or you get towed, and there's no parking ever. Like, I remember the couple times I went to visit my friend, I literally spent like an hour and a half looking for parking, and I eventually was like, we are never meeting your house again. Like, that's the end of that. I am not driving out here to spend an hour and a half to find parking 20 blocks down.
It sucks. It's horrible. Glendale it's a chill area. It's close to the studios, which is great, especially if you're an actor or producer or whatever. Like it's close to that area, but it's less of that house upon house street part. Like it's less crowded, it feels like, I guess. But the minute you cross over those hills, it is pandemonium for parking. I hated when they got so excited about having parties in Hollywood. And I was like, ugh.
Oh
If they
gosh,
don't have
it's
valet,
like,
you're screwed.
yeah, there was a couple parties I went to in the hills, and if they didn't have valet, and even when they did, it was terrifying because the valet is parking all the cars and stuff on these huge hills and things, and then the other cars are still coming through, but there's barely any space up there as it is. It's scary. Like, I always was like, no, we're Ubering. I'm not. If there's some sort of, you're dropping us off, you're picking us up, I am not driving out there, and I don't care if there's valet. No.
Well, forgive me if I've said this story before, but I had one of my best friends in the world that I've known forever. No names here, but he was a valet part-time when he first got out there. His goal, this is awesome. I don't know what happens in today's world or how we got away with it back then, but he would find girls, and as a valet, he would tell them to meet them places, and he would have sex in almost every car that he got, every night that he could. And he would
Gosh.
It's so gross, so horrible. Like, can you imagine if that was your car? But he did it all the time. He'd meet these girls and be like, okay, I'm going to be in this Ferrari or whatever, and do his business or whatever. I'm like, at the time, I was like, that's really cool. But as I get older, I'm like, what if that was your car? Like, ew, ugh, gross.
You'd be
Ugh.
surprised what happens in Los Angeles. I've seen some weird ass shit.
It is, but I'm trying to think how to describe this because it doesn't feel weird at the time though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's certain things that are just like, it's only weird if you hadn't seen it yet and you haven't heard about it. Like the random palm trees being on fire. Like you just walk by and there'll be a palm tree that's just like completely on fire and everyone just acts like it's not happening.
Hang on.
Wait, is this one you haven't seen?
I think I have seen everything under the sun until you mentioned that. Like, what do you mean a palm tree on fire? I don't remember this.
You've never seen that? There'll be random palm trees and the top of them will be on fire and nobody like everyone's just whatever, trees on fire. And it'll only be the top.
No, Blake, I have to say now I have to go searching for this because I'm thinking about like I don't think I've seen the hills on fire, because there's always some sort of thing going on there. Like I've seen houses fall, but I've never seen like a palm tree randomly on fire. That would freak the crap out of me. No, I've never seen
that's so funny. That actually I've seen like 3 or 4 of them. But yeah, there's weird things like that. I'm trying to think. There is one of the shows actually like pointed out 6 or 7 things that you see, and they were making a joke about like if you see these things, you can never leave LA. It might have been You. I can't remember though which show it was, but I remember watching it and I was like, oh, seen that. Haven't seen that.
Well, but to your point, I think that people expect weird in LA. San Francisco is nutty to me. Like, that's just too nutty to me. Like it's too anything goes up there. LA is more like a fun. I remember like seeing people that would steal grocery carts and have go-kart races down hills on them. And I think that's where eventually they got the brakes because I've only seen them in LA, but they have like a brake thing on the wheels. So you take them outside the premises.
Yeah, actually a whole alarm goes off and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think it's because so many people were taking them to race. And I remember as a kid, that was totally normal. Like no one thought anything of it. You're like laughing about it. And so I think like weird stuff like that is just accepted. It's just an odd. And again, you have to live there for a period of time. If you're there for a week, yes, you're going to see weird stuff. You may even see a palm tree on fire, I guess. You're going to have great food. You're going to have fun experiences. But the longer you're there, the weirder things become.
Did I ever tell you the story of the guy who jumped out in front of my car?
No. What are you talking about?
So where the Target is now in Hollywood near Vine.
That is a beautiful Target, by the way.
Oh, yes. And they have awesome clothes there. And it's like 2 or 3 story Target. But anyway, Side note. That also took forever for them to build because they didn't want it there. But right on that road near Vine, this was before the Target was open. So it looked like a big creepy half building from like a dystopian novel. I was passing by or whatever. It was pretty late at night. Stop at a red light. I go and suddenly, I swear to God, this guy jumps out in front of my car wearing a diaper and a cape with like a big stick. And he starts yelling at me and waving his stick around. And he has like no teeth. And then he throws the stick at my car and then runs off. And somehow I managed not to hit him. I literally came within maybe like half a foot of hitting him because he jumped out in front of my car. But it was a crazy, I was like, what the hell just happened? And he was just like, yeah, whack, throws the stick and runs away. And it was like, it felt like, what's that? Donnie from the Thornberries. It was very like, I don't know what he was yelling at me, gibberish, and tosses the thing and runs off. And I was like, and this was a grown ass man in a diaper. I was like, what the hell is going on in a cape? I don't know if he was homeless. I don't know if it was a joke. I have no idea. It could have been all those things, but it was the weirdest. Like, I was just like, welcome to LA.
Okay. That's a weird. Now, how long had you lived there before this happened?
I was there for, let's see, I was already in the second apartment. So I had been there about a year.
Okay. See, so first of all, that's a traumatic story. But after about a year, that's when the real weird starts coming out. That's kind of what I was alluding to. Like, I think what happens is LA hits you, it's enticing, right? It kind of invites you in. It says, hey, look, this is a fun place to be. There's a good vibe. Get used to it for a few months. And then real weird starts happening. And after a year, they're like, look, okay, we're going to show you the real LA now. And then it opens up just a little bit further and you're going, oh, I don't know if this is right for me. You know?
Oh, there's definitely some weird things that go on for sure. Things that people too always think I'm just making this stuff up. And I'm like, nope, this is how it is. I think it's also LA has this energy where I feel like it amplifies energy. So if you are unstable before you go there, you tend to go batshit. If you are already successful, you tend to become more successful. If you are in horrifying debt and you gamble and you do bad things, then you tend to fall deeper into that rabbit hole.
I think that's it. Yes, it magnifies all that stuff. I would totally agree. And I think that it feeds on, what's the right word here? It feeds on your natural inclinations, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I do love about LA, though, that I've lived so many different places. I've been all over the world. I've never felt, though, like, I don't know if I guess creative is the right word. Like you feel like you're in this weird space where anything can go, where it's like this combination of energy and stuff and ideas, and anything could happen any moment. And it's funny because you light a spark of creativity and then you can watch it, like, kind of just manifest itself. It's really, to me, that's the allure that I think for me keeps pulling me back, because I want that. Like where I live now, it's so funny because it is a very Stepfordville kind of feel. It is a very safe, it's very clean, it's very everything you expect in a suburb of Texas. Like it's everything you expect. Great schools, like all that stuff. And that's awesome. But it comes at a cost in terms of the creativity, because you get these kind of same people, you get all these things. Whereas LA, what people don't understand is that you go from like, you can be one street is Beverly Hills and the next is shit. It's literally that much. And so that dichotomy and weirdness, I think, keeps it really funky and fresh and fun. I don't know. It's a weird, fun place. And I'm excited for your adventure out there, because I have never left for a long period of time and then come back. So I can't wait to hear the stories because I think it's used to you seeing weird stuff. So I'm excited. But Glendale's is still, it's a cleaner, safer area. But the minute you cross the hills or you go to the studios, I expect some good stories.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. I love Burbank, Glendale area. Parts of Glendale are a little bit further out, but it's easier to get everywhere. What people don't realize about living in Hollywood is you get stuck in all that traffic all the time. It takes forever to get in and out of Hollywood. You can't
walk.
No.
Yeah,
you can't walk anywhere.
City. Yeah, you can't. There's nowhere to walk, so you have to drive. So yes, it's a bitch.
Yeah, but I'm excited to go back to, and it's cool because even though I've been gone for quite some time, I've managed to go back at least once every year. But this is going to be the first time I'm like officially moving back, and it'll be cool because I know a lot of my friends have been waiting for this. They're like, you've been saying this for a while, and it's always been like something's happened. This time it's actually happening, so that's cool.
It's really cool, but it's the little things that, like you're talking about now, like getting rid of the shelving and stuff. It's nice because it makes it real, right? Like, you're moving in that direction. Like for me, I hate the feeling of the move before because I hate the clutter. I
hate clutter too. It gives me anxiety, and that's part of why I was like, damn it, maybe I shouldn't have sold the shelves first.
Well, okay, I'm going to ask why it just seems very random to sell those first. So why did you sell those first?
Well, I guess it was more of what can I start getting rid of now? Because my thing is, with the last couple times I've moved, you always think you're going to get more done faster than you do. And so what happens is you end up rushing around trying to get rid of everything last minute. And I hate that. So this time I was like, I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to start now. Crap, everything's all over the floor. Damn it. But most of the stuff is stuff I just got to get bigger boxes, because the boxes I have right now are the smaller ones for like more fragile things and stuff like that. I need to have like middle, medium size boxes to put books and that type of stuff in. That's mostly what's been on the shelves. That's mainly why I did it. But it's also, I'm trying to start really figuring out what I'm keeping and what I'm getting rid of. Because originally I was like, I'm keeping this, I'm keeping this, I'm keeping this. And I'm like it's literally just like, this, no, I don't need that. Like, sell that. That's too much of a pain in the ass to get into the truck or to get into the whatever, or to get it across country. Or what if I have stairs? That's funny how your mindset shifts. Well, because originally I was like, I'm not getting rid of this. I'm not getting rid of that. And then the other day I was like, if I live on the second or third floor, do I really want to worry about having to get that up the stairs? What if it doesn't fit through the door? Like,
no, and that's the other thing. Those are the things you have to think about, especially if you live in an apartment. Like, is it going to fit? That kind of stuff. Because you don't know the dimensions and all that. One of my favorite stories about moving upstairs is Kelly's sister moved to New York City, I don't know, let's say 15 years ago. She's like fresh out of college. She moves in. Her brother was already living there at the time. And she ended up getting a place like on the 6th story, whatever. But it just like out of the movie Big Bang, like their elevator never works. It just never worked. So
oh no.
moving her in, she put this, the way he describes it is basically like a good sized box, maybe a 3-foot by 2-foot box. And it says really important on it. So of course he moves that first, and he goes to move it. He's like, holy shit, this is heavy. He doesn't complain, whatever. He's like, here, I'm going to help my sister. He moves it up. And then of course, as he gets it in there, he slips whatever and it falls and it goes forward. And it's just a bunch of yearbooks and like books that she's never even opened or read. And he looks at her and goes, what? And she goes, oh, yeah, that was just an extra box I found. One of my roommates gave me that. That was one of her boxes. And he's like, God damn it. So, like, he was so mad. He had to walk up 6 flights of stairs, this hugely heavy box. She didn't help at all. She had to get her own stuff. And so he was that was the first box he moved. And they'd do a whole U-Haul thing. So it did not go well after that. He was pretty pissed.
That is funny. I'll say one of the most stressful moves that I ever did was when I moved into and out of New York City, because my apartment was on the 9th floor. And thankfully, I didn't really have furniture because the place I was staying at was mostly furnished, but it was still just lugging everything up and down the stairs. I remember distinctly trying to fit things in the bag. And I eventually was like, I'm just throwing half of this stuff out. It was so stressful to worry about, because also driving in New York City I don't do it. My best friend's like, oh, whatever. He always drives through. I'm one of those people like, no. Not to mention, usually when I'm in the car with someone else in New York City, I get very like, oh my God, it stresses me out. So trying to get things down from the 9th floor and then trying to like pack the car when everyone's honking at you and stuff, I was just like, I'm throwing this away.
One of my favorite memories of my mom is, and it just made me think of this, like I'm getting rid of crap, right? So my grandfather was in World War II, and we retraced his steps, God, let's say 20, 30 years ago. He was in Normandy, and we went all the way through, and he was one of the liberators of Dachau in Germany. So it was really cool to take this history trip, whatever, with your grandfather that was there and learn all this stuff. We get to Germany. Dachau is like at the base of like where the Alps start. And then we wanted to go to this place called Garmisch, which is like a really beautiful, picturesque town. Back then it was maps. So you had these maps laid out everywhere, and you planned the day before and whatever. Well, it's pouring rain, long journey, and my mom and dad are fighting because they can't see where to turn. And my mom, like, she's not great at map reading anyways. I feel bad for her. But he's like, where do I turn? She goes, I can't fucking tell. She gets all mad, and we're just like, okay, whatever. And the next thing you know, she goes, let me see the map. And she goes, you can't see the map. You want to see what I want to do with the map? She wads up the map, throws it out the window. And now we have 5 more days without a map. So Long story short, it worked out really well because all of a sudden, this is like where this weird fate thing comes around. This random German person, because we have like a 3-car caravan. It was my uncle, my grandfather, and us. Like we're in this caravan thing. Pulls over, and my grandfather speaks fluent German. They pull over and they start talking. And this really nice, I don't remember if it was a man or woman, but actually guides us through the hill and actually goes and takes us to our hotel.
Oh, wow.
It was unreal. So we got there, but my parents definitely fought for the last part of that trip. And I could not stop giggling the whole time. Want to see what I do with this map? And just threw it out the window. We're all like, Mom, how are we going to get to the airport? Like, what are we going to do? She's like, I didn't think about that.
I didn't think about that.
So when you're throwing stuff out, make sure that you have a plan to get to the airport is all I'm saying. Don't throw out any critical maps because you just never know when you might need one.
That is funny. When we were moving back, this is a funny story because it reminds me of that type of getting frustrated and just like, fuck it. When we were moving back from California this last time, it was one of those shove everything in the 2 cars thing. Well, my best friend was getting so frustrated with trying to pack things in boxes and trying to get the boxes to fit. So at one point, he has this box full of shit. He's trying to fit it in the car and it's not fitting. And he just goes, fuck it. And he turns it and he goes like this and dumps everything out of the box into the car, slams the door and goes, good enough, and walks off.
That is the quintessential moving story right there. You had all these plans and you were like, I got to get in the car. Fuck it. I'm just going to throw it in there. And and then you get to unmove it, then you finally get to where you're at. And I'm sure he was like, God damn it, I wish I saved that box. Yes. Nothing like picking up a million pieces off the bottom of your car going
under the seats. Yeah. He was finding things forever.
That's the whole point. Yeah. So my brother, when they moved, I think they were in California and he moved out to San Antonio for medical school or Arizona. I can't remember what stage he was at. Anyways, he loves Lego. So it was some huge thing of Lego, like a huge, like 3-foot tower thing. I can't remember if it was Lord of the Rings, Saruman's tower. It was something huge. That's all I remember. The poor bastard. He makes it all the way to San Antonio. It doesn't break. He gets there and tries to move it. It just crumbles.
Oh.
He did. He hacked it in the car perfectly, and his wife teased him. She's like, "It's not going to make it. It's not going to make it." He's like, "It's going to make it." I don't know if you put pillows around it. I don't know what he did, but he hacked it really perfectly. And all I remember is he went to move it, and he just texted me, and he was just devastated. He's like, "It broke." I'm like, "I'm so sorry, dude."
That is funny. Well, I had an interesting story happen actually talking about selling the shelves and things. And this happened to me 3 times, which is very weird to me. So the first time I sold one of those like desk organizer things that has like multiple drawers.
Yeah.
And the lady comes and she picks it up and she's just like, you've no idea what a blessing this is. And I'm like, okay. And she takes it, leaves. Then I have like another shelf or something that I sold and it was a different lady says the same thing. And on the 3rd time, I was like, what the hell? Like, this is so weird. But it got me to thinking about the fact that we do often overlook some of these smaller things that are blessings and stuff. But I was over here like, why does everyone keep saying like, this is such a blessing? It's cheap shit shelf or whatever that you could get from Target for like $20. I'm just like,
it's weird.
Yeah, it was very weird. But, when things happen in synchronicity like that, it's usually for a reason. But I was just like, the hell?
Synchronicity is a weird thing, and I guess in those moments it makes you feel grateful, whatever. Maybe it reminds you to be grateful or whatever. I don't know what the message is there, but moving as a whole, there's a million lessons in it. We could probably go on another like 3-4 hours on this, just in terms of heartache, burnout. I know a couple that actually got divorced over moving, and it was over dumb stuff, stupid stuff. So the moving stories are endless, and I think they're so relatable because at some point you have to move. Like, you're going to move, whatever's going to happen, and you're going to probably move multiple times. I look forward to everyone's comment. I'd love to hear what your guys' stories are. What's your biggest travesty? What's the lesson you learned? What is something you'll never do? Share it, because it's always good to laugh, and it's more importantly, it's great to help other people with, I used a pod, but they sent it to Miami and not LA. What? Like whatever. Like on just a brief side note here as we wrap up, in our neighborhood, we have these weird restrictions. I mean, it's nice, but it's also weird. So like, you can't park an RV on the street. You can't, there's certain things to keep traffic moving or whatever. One of them is if you get a pod, you get, I think it's 3 days to unload a pod. or something. But pod, I guess their policy is you leave it there for like 2 weeks. It's some sort of long period of time because they don't just come and pick it up. They drop it off for a certain period of time, then they pick it up at a later period. You can't say I want it gone tomorrow. They basically say, okay, we drop it off here, we pick it up in 14 days, whatever. It's been very funny because we had some people move in a little while ago and they did pods and everyone's getting all upset. And the poor, I mean, it just feels so bad for this person because they're like, look, I didn't know I couldn't get them out of here, but they're not going to come pick this up. And I'm just like, you poor bastard. You're trying to move into this neighborhood. You don't know anybody. You're trying to get set up and everyone's already mad at you for something that you have no control over.
Yeah.
It's a lose-lose. When you're moving with something like that, just keep in the back, prepare that with me, 9 months to get all your stuff, everything done. With you, with your stories, with this, with a pod, whatever. Just be open to all these things and look into the things that you think you may not need to, especially with where you're moving to, because all new places have weird policies too. You can only move in on Sundays, or you can do everywhere has weird restrictions. So look into everything so you understand it so you don't stress yourself out.
Or permits for pods in Los Angeles. You usually have to get a permit unless you have a designated parking spot that the truck can actually get to. So that's important because I've had a couple friends who did that and truck didn't fit in the garage. So there was none of that. There was nowhere to put the pod. So they ended up putting the pod like several blocks down, which you can imagine trying to move your stuff from several blocks down in LA.
Well, especially if you're in the valley. This time of year, it's going to be hot, sweaty. You're going to fight. You're going to be complaining and you're going to hate each other afterwards. So that's the other thing. If you're going with someone or someone's trying to help you move, you're going to fight. You're going to, no matter how good of friends you are, no matter how good things go, you're going to get tired. You're going to get dehydrated. Just accept it all. It's part of the adventure.
That's great. Great advice.
Last piece, bathrooms. Know where a good bathroom is.
Yes.
Because you're going to have to go, especially moving takes a long time. And I did have somebody move into their apartment, but their bathroom wasn't ready at one point in time. I don't know why. I didn't get into the details, but they had to keep going in the front office.
Oh.
So they got very annoyed. Like, stop peeing so much. And they were like, look, I drink a lot. It's hot out. Nope, you can only use it one more time. They're like, what am I supposed to do? They're like, your bathroom's ready at 4. They're like, well, whatever.
Oh my gosh, that is bad. But I will say, if you're moving to LA, though, it's important to make sure that you actually have a bathroom because some of them have bathrooms on the floors that everybody use. Did you know that? Yeah. So that's a thing in California. Some of those old buildings, they have bathrooms on the floor, like a dorm that people use, or like kitchen. Same in New York, kitchens on the floor. Yeah, you have to pay attention to that type of stuff. And in California specifically, you have to make sure that you have a stove and a refrigerator and all that included in your rent, or you have to rent one, which is several $100s a month. So
yay, moving. Well, on that note, Blake, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. It was a stroll down memory lane. Hopefully we gave everyone some good advice, some good stories, some good anecdotes.
I think so. I think we did. And I'm interested to hear everyone else's moving stories too. Well, Justin, as they say, all good things must come to an end.
Alas, they must. However, this isn't the end because next week, same time, same channel, we drop another episode.
So get excited because we're going to be diving deeper into all the topics of the not so subtle truth about success and
the art of sucking less in the pursuit of it. So join the conversation below and don't forget to subscribe.